Today I'm here with my friend Gavin, and he's been training calisthenics for
about 10 years now.
10 years.
Yeah.
Freaking insane. Today I'm going to be asking him questions, gonna be rapid firing them on what advice he would give people who are just getting into calisthenics. As you all know, I'm sure it can be super overwhelming when you're just getting started. Question 1. What are the foundational movements every beginner should master first?
So I would say pull-ups, push-ups, dips, squats, lunges, hollow body, and then also scapula control. So being able to protract, retract, all that good stuff.
If someone can't even do their first pull-up, push-up, or dip yet, what would you recommend they start with?
So for the pull-ups, I'd recommend using the bands, work your way down the bands. For push-ups, you can start at an incline using the wall and then lower the amount that the height is. And for dips, you can start using a chair. Once you got 15, 20 dips using a chair or a box, then you could try some bodyweight dips.
How strong should someone be before they start chasing skills like the muscle up, for example?
I think it depends on the skill, but for muscle ups specifically, I would say you want to be able to do 8 pull-ups comfortably, getting your chin above the bar. Obviously, there's a lot more that goes into the muscle up than that, but that's a good starting point for most people.
What are the most important body positions beginners need to learn in calisthenics when they're first starting? An example could be like a hollow body hold, those kinds of things.
Yeah, so definitely hollow body. And then I always tell people scapula control as well. So being able to do scapula pull-ups and scapula dips, scapula push-ups. Another good position I would say is probably the German hang, because it's a really good stretch on your chest and shoulders.
What's one mistake you see beginners make that slows their progress a lot? Could be a technique thing or whatever comes to mind.
I say the most common mistake I see is people skipping steps, skipping the basics, or trying to reinvent the wheel when it comes to training. There usually isn't a secret trick or formula to get stronger faster. A lot of it is just smart training consistently.
Patience, guys, patience. And how do you know when you're ready to move towards a harder progression?
That's a good question. I would definitely encourage you to do attempts of skills, and based off of those attempts, you kind of have to figure out on your own. So it's a pretty broad question. It really depends on what the skill is and where your strength level is at. But in general, I would say you always want to master all the different regressions. Just comfortably being able to hold it. Usually I would say 5 seconds is good enough, but if you can do 10 seconds comfortably of a progression like a tuck front lever or advanced tuck front lever, that's usually good enough to try to start to experiment with doing harder progressions, but definitely don't skip the basics. I would say a mastery of a hold would be like 30-second tuck planche, for example. That's a good rule of thumb that I give people.
I like that answer. And how many days per week do you think someone should realistically train calisthenics?
Just starting out, I would say, honestly, like 3 days a week is pretty good. And it really depends on your goals. Again, as you get stronger, then you would want to obviously increase that amount. But if we're doing full body strengthening, 3 days is good. For skill training, once you get into that, usually that's like the more consistent you can be with it, the better. Maybe not every day, but for example, if you're learning handstands, 4, 5, sometimes even 6 days a week, but not very long, right? Like 15, 20 minutes max. If you're doing it 6 days a week, maybe even 10 minutes at most.
Yeah.
That's what I would recommend.
What do you think the overall structure of a calisthenics workout should look like for beginners?
First, I would say you want to make sure you have good enough stability and mobility. So just making sure you're not super tight so you're not going to injure yourself, and you also know how to activate all the right muscles, doing things like the scapula pull-up like we talked about before. And then from there, you just want to work on the basics. So pull-ups, push-ups, dips, and get stronger with those.
Do you think that you can build serious muscle with calisthenics, or do you think that you eventually need actual weights?
Yeah, no, calisthenics doesn't build muscle. Got you. No, got you. Yeah, for sure it builds muscle, but it just depends on how you train it, right? So there are so many different ways of training, and the focus really matters. But in general, if you're doing strength training, whether that's with or without weights, you're gonna build muscle.
How do you progressively overload with body weight training?
The best ways to progress would be increasing leverage, increasing volume, and time under tension. And again, it really depends on the skill or the exercise, but those are the big three.
What is a sign that someone is doing too much too soon?
Your body will always give you feedback, right? So if you feel, aches in your wrist, aches, somewhere in your chest, shoulder, or elbow, that's a sign that your body's giving you that you're either overtraining or not doing something the right way.
So going off of that too, do you recommend any exercises to keep all of those healthy, like shoulders, your elbows, and all of that?
It depends on the person, but for sure, just general mobility is gonna be really important. I would say one of the most overlooked stretches is like shoulder extension. So a lot of times we're doing a lot of things with our hands in front of us. So it's really important that we stretch our shoulders behind us, doing things like shoulder dislocations, skin the cats, German hangs, and that'll help counteract not only all the exercises that we're doing, but also it helps with posture and opening up the front side of the body as well.
I can say I've noticed that firsthand too. So
Yeah, me too.
yeah. What helped you personally progress the fastest when you started?
I think honestly the biggest game changer was filming myself. Being able to go back and watch it gives you the ability to almost coach yourself and see the form and make those adjustments, especially if you know how to train. Sometimes you might know how, but you don't realize the mistakes you're making until you actually see it on the video.
To anyone watching, if someone watching this wants to start calisthenics tomorrow, what advice would you give them?
I think lately maybe there's been a trend of overanalyzing the training. Honestly, if you're a beginner, I wouldn't overcomplicate it. Focus on consistency. Just focus on getting stronger in the fundamental movements that we talked about in this video. Of course, there's optimal ways to train and everything like that, but if you eat healthy and you train consistently, you're gonna see gains for sure.
Thank you, Gavin. I'll tag his channel below. What is it?
Gavin.Motion on everything. Yeah.
He's got the motion. All the camera.